I sustained those wretches on pure salt waste. They swapped their honor for a quick doze. A hot plate was just a bedtime story. I anticipated a massacre, but that eerie stillness was way worse. Is the nightmare over? They wheezed, their minds unraveling. Rumors flew that I was grooming them like cattle for slaughter. One week in, they cornered me, hunting for a blood sacrifice. My word became their only scripture. They bowed like I was some deity. Then they turned obsessive, picking my clothes and mapping my life. They offered me a gold-stitched robe, begging for a savior. But those silk patterns were just a target, a fancy casket liner. Their idolization became my death warrant, regardless of my loyalty to the state. I never craved the throne, but the evidence was on my back. 2.5 years ago, they dumped me in this pit with one crate. I actually thought owning a private stash made me a king. At first, the gear just vomited oily weeds. I used to wonder if the salt water or the bitterness was what finally broke a man. Some hobo's twisted advice looped in my head every hour. He said a bit of grease in the soup is the price of a human soul. Give them a fantasy, and they will wade through a lake of gore. The haze finally vanished when Yang pointed toward the wreckage. The graveyard, he muttered, eyeing the scorched remains. The path just bled into a literal desert of ground-up skeletons. Staring at those rotting shells made my skin crawl. In this hellscape, a starving girl just face-planted into the muck. She whimpered for a single crumb just to keep her pulse going. Then 12 more ghostly faces stepped out from the icy dark. A wall of pure human agony blocked every single exit. They looked like phantoms until a sudden shriek cut through the air. Make a path for the boss. A guy with a blade barked. He moved with the heavy stride of a man who still held the leash. I demanded to see the person in charge. He just gave a cold, nasty smirk. Nobody, he spat. They bowed to steel here, not names. I didn't even blink. I just tossed him 2 emergency packs. Amidst the filth, I saw a spark of raw, killer survival instinct. This disaster is on you, I growled. You hold the cards now. Feed them, I ordered while he stood there like a statue. Handing him that authority snapped his spirit cleaner than a blade. A massive shout of relief rolled across the scorched city. He dragged 44 pounds of survival gear through the dirt. That bought us 48 hours of peace. He didn't waste a second. He passed it out, yelling for everyone to stay back. Captain Wu, she sobbed. This is high-grade grain. He thought he was dreaming until his fingers hit the seeds. The soldier turned ghost white, staring at those tiny white gems. He reached for it, then flinched, sickened by his own grime. He backed away, terrified his filth would ruin my designer coat. For us? He panted. I barked back, yeah, and from this second on, I am the one running this show. At dawn, the kitchen doors crashed open for the hungry. A thunderous roar erupted, making the very floor shake under my feet. I silenced them with a stare, then looked at the kid with the rifle. What is your name? Take me to the main square. They call me Six, he said. Lead the way, Six. Once we reached the center, my stomach did a slow, sick flip. Every back alley was just a morgue filled with piles of junk. These people were empty. There was nothing left behind their stares. Six started yelling to kill that creepy, heavy silence. The capital didn't abandon us. Our hero has finally arrived. Full rations for everyone tomorrow. The mood flipped in a heartbeat. Dead eyes sparked to life as a wave of hope hit. It was raw, total desperation. We pulled up to a skeleton of a building. He shouted, "Chief, the power player is here." A man in rags walked out with a few hired thugs. The boss froze. "Six, you better not be messing with me. He is the real deal. Our final chance." The man's legs gave out, and he started crying like a broken kid. Thank the Lord. We thought we were left for dead. I hauled him up and demanded the straight, ugly truth. Only 6 months ago, this place was booming. 800 families vanished. 2,000 survivors are just clinging to life. They butchered the council. The corpses are still swinging from the beams. That thought made my blood turn to liquid nitrogen. He whispered, "When do the troops and the food land?" I was trapped. The truth was going to be a death sentence for us all. The whole country was a scavenged corpse, bled dry by the rich. The entire land was falling into total madness. Help was never coming. I let out a dry, metallic laugh. I had to kill their fairy tales immediately. The suits uptown aren't sending a single damn thing. How can these people still believe in these childhood ghost stories? I kept my voice low, but the pain was heavy. Every word landed like a hammer, draining the color from their skin. Their hope flatlined. I stepped forward. I won't let you starve. My private shipment arrives at noon tomorrow. Food starts moving at exactly 12 p.m. But listen close, nothing in this life is a handout. Your defenses are a joke. Any bandit could end us. We start building at dawn. The south gate is the top priority. I don't care how old you are, you either pull your weight or you starve. You sweat, you eat, no work, no dinner. Not a single person dared to object while I drafted the blueprint to salvage our failing strongholds. Deep down, they were desperate for a sign from above, even while betting on my total ruin. These folks figured my talk of rations was just another bedtime story to keep them quiet. I turned on Chin, demanding he tally every soul still breathing in this decaying, godforsaken county. I had to identify who was actually literate or who possessed the skills to build something that would not crumble. My instructions were simple. Finish those registers before we returned to the outpost. Once we hit the office, Chien looked like he'd seen a ghost the second I mentioned the grain. He fumbled over his words, asking if I truly expected to feed a city on nothing but thin air. He pointed out that the local gangs had picked the bone dry months ago. I asked if he was deaf, since I had already stated the payload was touching down tonight. All I needed was a high-security vault, so he guided me toward the heavy iron silos. I ordered Chien to bolt the locks and hand the keys straight to Yong. The delivery crew would track him down. Besides, Yong was the only man left I could actually trust. With the logistics handled, Chen took me to see the wreckage by the docks. We burned the whole afternoon patrolling the perimeter until the sheer scale of the disaster finally hit home. My original plan was to squeeze the rich and give the land back to the people. But scanning the horizon, I realized there was not a single fat cat left to squeeze. Anyone with 2 nickels to rub together had fled this war zone a lifetime ago. It finally clicked why the universe had dealt me such a garbage hand. Without these supplies, staying put was a suicide pact. By 5 in the morning, we reached the gates. My stomach turned at the sight, just a handful of broken men trailing behind old Lou. Maybe 20 people in that entire crowd looked fit enough to swing a single hammer. It made my skin crawl. I could not stop the venomous insults from slipping through my teeth. Do these fools honestly think they are doing me a favor just by breathing? When the predators return, do they really think I am the only target on the menu? Chien noticed the rage in my eyes and rushed over to talk me down from the edge. He pleaded with me to see that starving men do not care about flags or grand ideals. They have not eaten in weeks. They would rather die in bed than try to move. To them, dying in the shadows feels safer than breaking their backs for another broken promise. That realization hit me like a physical punch, and I felt a sharp, stabbing guilt. I ought to have fed them before demanding they bleed for these worthless rocks. But explaining how tons of rice appeared during a famine was a total mission impossible. I spat on my degrees, knowing 21st century logic meant nothing in this world of blood. Chien broke the silence, asking what the hell our next move was supposed to be. I choked down my ego and told him to organize the crowd into squads of 10. I needed a perfect head count because we were only feeding those on the official list. Chien was a pro, getting 20 units into position before I could even blink. They stood in formation, but barely 10% looked like they could do an honest day's work. The morning was a total waste, but when the sun hit its peak, I gave the signal. I told the boys to break out the grain and make sure that porridge was thick as mud. The villagers waited with hollow bellies and eyes full of nothing but cold suspicion. Every last one of them wondered if this meal was just some sick, twisted prank. Chien kept the line flowing, making sure only the registered workers got so much as a single scoop. They stood in line, clutching those wooden bowls like they were made of solid gold. As the steam drifted up, the scent of hot rice hit them like a freight train. The heavy aroma of roasted beef filled the air, stopping everyone in their tracks. Mouths began to water, but the massive oak cask I rolled forward left them speechless. Dark broth overflowed, glistening under a rich, golden layer of fat. I cracked my ledger and barked for them to form their groups. No name on the list, no food. I will not tolerate any leeches. Gula's crew stepped up first. He grabbed a steaming bowl, ignoring the burn. One desperate gulp later, the icy hole in his stomach started to melt. Warmth surged through him. This was not the watered-down slop the government usually peddled. Gula turned to his boys and snarled, "Listen up, you mangy mutts. The boss is serving top-shelf grain meant for the ruling elite." The feeding frenzy began. Moments later, a haunting silence fell over the entire camp. Tough guys suddenly broke down, sobbing like children on the dusty earth. Years of hunger were vanishing. The relief was overwhelming. I watched, eating my fill. Honestly, that symphony of crying was starting to grate on my nerves. I yelled, "Get up, keep eating. Stop the waterworks before people think I am soft." You could hear a pin drop. Every single man just stared at me in shock. The offer sounded like a trap. They were actually being invited back for seconds. They exchanged looks, terrified they would wake up face down in the dirt again. One bowl was a miracle. Hearing it was an open buffet felt like paradise. A walking skeleton dropped to his knees. "Sir, can I really have more?" I gave a short, silent nod and pointed toward the giant vats. Seeing I was serious, the men scrambled, nearly trampling each other. They swarmed the barrels, inhaling the stew as if the world were ending tonight. I stood my ground, my voice booming. "Stay loyal, and you will never go hungry. But betray me once, and I will make sure you never taste another morsel." I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was building a reputation for absolute power. 5 hostile armies are closing in. Wooden pickets will not stop that kind of carnage. Once these fortifications are up, I will turn these laborers into a lethal army. I needed soldiers. I was planning a war when Xinyang dragged someone forward. He was dragging some rat-faced bottom feeder by the scruff of his neck. He shoved him into the muck. "Xinyang," I asked, "what is his crime?" Xinyang gave a nod. "Boss, I caught this parasite. He goes by the name Ba. He ditched his work detail today just to prowl around the city square. He tried to scam a meal. He deserves to bleed." The kid was shaking. I kept my blade tucked away and told the guard to grab 2 bowls. "You're Bishung, right? You've already eaten." He collapsed, pleading for mercy. "Sir, please, I was dying. I only faked the work to stay alive. I didn't even get 3 spoonfuls before they grabbed me. I failed. I will work double." I grinned. "How was the soup, Bung?" He stopped dead. He shoved his face into the dirt, trembling. "It was the best thing I've ever had, sir." I leaned down, whispering like a nightmare. "This food is not a gift. The next time you're that starving." I breathed. The kid looked petrified. "Sir, please, have mercy." I tuned him out. "I need fortifications, and I need muscle. Look at these bowls. One is for you. Use the other to bring me more recruits." Bishung stared as if he'd been struck by a bolt of lightning. "Sir, you want. And me? Spread the word. Sweat blood for this rampart and you earn a full plate plus a tomorrow." I buried the deception under a crisp, calculated nod. The guy inhaled sharply, reeling from the stroke of fortune. "So, I am not being hung for yesterday's screw-up, Chief?" I let out a jagged, empty chuckle. "Not if you haul twice the hands in here by dawn. Drop the ball once more and I'll toss you into a shallow grave on top of all your filthy laundry. Your final chance." He collapsed onto the concrete, his skull cracking against the hard ground as he wept. "Consider me sold, sir. I will shatter those targets. I'll pack this place with every breathing soul in town." A cold smirk split my lips. Come sunrise, I was already patrolling the southern boundary. Over 400 famished ghosts had assembled by the first ray of light. This fellow, Bang, rushed over, hauling his wife along to claim the glory. He fell to the dirt, wheezing hard. "See, sir, I delivered precisely what you demanded. I scoured every gutter in this city, swearing they would feast like royalty. Now, they are scratching at the gates to get in. Even my better half is here to pull her weight. We're bleeding out for your grand plan. Just give us a slot." This was no patchwork job. We were clawing a citadel out of the sludge. We forged it more massive and resilient than anyone imagined possible. Yesterday's 200 laborers were merely ambulatory wraiths on the brink of collapse. Just hollow husks, lacking the sheer grit to swing a mallet or drag rock. Progress had frozen solid. Yet today, the atmosphere cracked. It was no longer just raw brawn moving the weight. I would have drafted every street mongrel around to seal this bargain. I flicked a hand, dismissing Bang and his lady. Pedigree means nothing. If you spill sweat for these stones, you get fed and funded. I barked fresh commands at Tony Yong. The crowd is massive. Light the backup cauldrons and double the portions right now. As he bolted, Chin Yong intercepted me, his features contorted with pure, ugly skepticism. Chief, are we actually burning the premium harvest on these vagrants? I looked straight through his skull. Do you have an issue with that? He began to tremble, fumbling his reply. No, only. That is A-grade supplies you are tossing out. Is this not overkill for dirt kickers? I read his play. He was a penny pincher, fixated on the bottom line. He figured if we fed them swill, our inventory would stretch for twice the time. The man was paralyzed by the thought of the silos going empty. Honestly, I had been itching for someone to test my resolve. This was the moment to possess their spirits for good. I let my roar thunder across the site with absolute power. A vagabond's soul equals a monarch's. I bellowed, the Reaper levels the field the second your heart stops. Why does the elite get the velvet? Were those fat cats born with golden wreaths around their brows? That single inquiry struck Chin Yong like a mace, pulverizing his entire perspective right then and there. I kept pushing. Don't ever believe you are nothing. In my eyes, one heartbeat outshines the constellations. I had just spat on the nobility and convinced these laborers they were more essential than the gods. The lieutenant stood paralyzed, drowning under the gravity of my speech. Chanyang was sold on the idea that the leader actually cared. He pledged to follow me with every ounce of his soul. I am his body and soul. 7 days evaporated in a haze of grit and backbreaking toil. Word of the warm meals traveled like a blaze. Youth, elders, or the crippled, it made no difference. Everyone was starving for a spot. The stampede was relentless. If there was a heartbeat in you, you marched to the project to nourish the monster. I didn't reject a single person. They were famished enough to dig their own graves for one decent bite. I stationed the seniors in the mess halls. In this engine, nobody was waste, everyone fit a gear. Even the youngsters were out scavenging for supplies. But I was doing more than just satisfying their hunger. I pressed cold hard cash into their palms. Every 10 days, I distributed wages and hefty sacks of seed. That white rice was more holy than any sermon. It represented our clean slate. Thanksgiving reshaped the village. The whole population was out there, churning like one massive, focused machine. The energy was electric, totally foreign. Days melted into a single endless cycle before I could blink. I had been running this district for 6 months, powered by the sheer hopelessness of the locals. After 6 months of dirt and sacrifice, those 4 colossal ramparts finally dominated the horizon. Every flank was completed simultaneously, secured by iron portals that finally shut the world out. Gazing at those 30-foot barriers of clay and rock, the tension in my chest finally uncoiled. I have been dancing with the devil for far too long, especially after 6 months of this eerie stillness. My kin bled for this, and frankly, it is a wonder the vultures did not pick us clean during the build. Still, a grim shadow remained. Nothing stays standing if you strike it with enough force. We seem untouchable on a map, fit to repel 20,000 hardened warriors. However, the real nightmares from the north and east allegedly lead 1 million bowmen apiece. Perhaps those tales are just myths for children, but I am not betting our necks on a hunch. 200,000 pillagers would turn us into cinders. I let out a breath, eyeing our sad excuse for a guard. We need fresh blood immediately. Now that there are walls, these folks finally have skin in the game. Their guts are packed, but my stint as a pro bono messiah is done. Handouts stop tonight. Throwing food at people for 0 sweat only breeds a colony of yellow-bellied sheep. The math is easy. If they want to keep breathing, they have to learn how to end lives. Later that afternoon, I called every survivor to the town center. Confronting the mob, I gave it to them straight: these stones will not hold back a hungry wolf. The Xionggu are stalking the northern flats. The Chiangyi are shoving from the west, while the Khitan pace around us like sharks. Ignore the imperial troops nearby. We are so bankrupt we do not even possess a solitary bow. Our whole armory consists of 30 corroded pikes and not one piece of plate. Effective immediately, I am signing up volunteers for a civilian army. Soldiers receive 3 full meals, 200 yen, and 30 crocks of supplies every month. The second I stopped talking, the whole square exploded into a riot of noise. They were stunned. I was pitching a lifestyle they had never even dared to dream of. The guarantee of real rice every single day struck them like a bolt from the blue. It was not just a queue, it was a rush to get on the payroll. 1/3 of the town enlisted on the spot, every male capable of hoisting a blade. It felt like a fever dream. I had just swapped some kernels and preserves for a private legion. 8 weeks later, I had a sharp unit plus 200 more on the bench. Moving on. I had the muscle, but I required capital to fuel this beast. I was down to 17 silver coins, but my storehouses were bursting at the seams. This was not about avarice. I intended to flip that grain for hard currency in the next territory. I handed the heavy lifting to my right-hand man, Yang Shio. Shio packed the carts and emptied the bins to trek to the neighboring metropolis. The goal was simple: transform our extra calories into cold, hard gold. It took several days to hit Bingyang, but those 10 haulers were carrying a king's ransom. They rolled back with 3,000 silver pieces glistening in the boxes. But Shio also carried whispers of a world sliding into total anarchy. A killer starvation was strangling the land. Yongha had not tasted a drop of rain in 6 months. The heavens were an oven, baking the soil and obliterating half the harvest. Shio recounted the nightmare stories he had picked up in the urban ghettos. "Sir, grain costs were skyrocketing by the minute," he reported. "Blood-sucking merchants were jacking up rates hourly, thrilled to watch the poor wither away." My gaze turned to ice. "Shio, tell me you did not gouge those corpses to be." Shio knew my code. I have no patience for vultures feeding on the weak. He collapsed to the floor instantly, frantic to show his soul was spotless. "Chief, I would never soil your reputation or pocket 1 cent of that dirty cash." My portfolio was being picked clean. I faked a total breakdown. "Look closer, Shio," I hissed. The cage door just slammed shut. "End them," I barked. He looked pale, like a corpse. I was finally becoming the apex predator in this concrete jungle. He wavered. I felt a tiny prick of sympathy. "Tell me, Shio, what is our biggest vulnerability? Cash flow? The supply chain?" He guessed. I scoffed, disgusted. "I am drawing a blank here, boss. Throw me a bone. The human will," I whispered. "Bills are kindling when society falls. We need to own their lives." He looked clueless. "Why bother saving these corporate bloodsuckers? Try thinking 10 steps ahead for a change, would you? Rivals jack up prices while we play the heroes. Eventually, the starving crowds will demand our heads in vengeance." The reality sank in. He felt the velvet trap tighten. That executive greed is going to drain the working class dry. Rumors are spreading that our rates are rock bottom. Soon, the desperate mobs will be storming our front gates. Pure genius. You are not hiring workers. You are buying their souls. Whole families will give up everything to follow us. Our staffing issues will vanish by dawn. Shio slipped into the shadows to find us a back alley broker. He recruited a kid named Ba, a street rat with nothing. That boy was not just trouble, he was a bomb. I was planting the seeds of a citywide inferno. We handed out those blessed seeds to every starving soul. 3,000 kilogram harvests? People lost their minds. They took the bait, the hook, and the whole line. I cleared the massive move-in payments to trigger the flood. Simple deal. Bring us labor, we will provide bread. New hires get a 100 kilogram grain bonus. Find me a blacksmith, and I will pay a 10 kilogram fee. Master craftsmen earn you a 200 kilogram bounty. Agents take 30, but reading is the real jackpot. Scholars fetch 300. Recruiters take a 50 kilogram cut. Neighbors were already selling each other out for food. At first, families thought it was a scam. Paradise in 12 months? It sounded like a total pipe dream. To them, we were a shining, golden beacon. With prices soaring, everyone was looking for any way out. The locals finally started asking real questions. What is the harm in just taking a look ourselves? That spark of curiosity spread like a wildfire. Then the letters arrived from those we had already liberated. "We are living like royalty. Pack your bags and come." The rice lies spread like a virus. Dumb luck kept us safe. If news had traveled faster, it would have been absolute mayhem. The mail sounded like fairy tales. Meanwhile, inflation was slowly choking the life out of the peasants. Grain cost silver bars. The whispers of cheap meals were getting deafeningly loud. Deceptions became literal lifeboats. Starving mobs began their long march toward us. Bang was eating, totally relaxed. The trucks were late. The sun was setting. The road was silent. No convoy. Bang started to panic. A messenger finally arrived. He collapsed in. "Sir," he wheezed. "The shipment was hijacked." Bang turned cold. "Who would touch my goods?" "Black Wind took the people. 100-kilogram ransom. Pay up or they are dead." Local stocks were empty. No money. I put out a desperate distress call. I needed the heavy hitters. The hideout, a throne made of animal skins. Sia bowing radiated pure malice. Yi would not stop bragging about the hits. Saya's laughter shook the floor. "Great lead. We hit the motherlode. 5 trucks. 10 captives. 7 days. Grain is the only currency now." Local scavengers beat the corporate giants. They did not even care about the rice. My legacy dictates the terms. I just finished my steak. Locals caught some wild game. Tough meat. But the broth was incredible. 3rd rounds. Bags packed. Showing the locals how to read and write. Chin Yong burst in. "Emergency." I jumped, expecting a professional hit squad. The mobs were coming. "The cargo. It is gone," he gasped. My heart rate leveled. No war. But relief turned into pure dread. Bishing's warning was pure hysteria. My gut sank. We were sitting ducks. Chen snapped under pressure. Our expansion was legendary before he blew those final transport routes. Arrogance clouded his judgment, swapping soldiers for ditch diggers. When he started stammering, I snapped about those buildings. I take smart gambles, but this was a death sentence. Residential construction? My soul chilled as I watched him crumble. He pleaded for mercy, blaming some technical error. I smirked. Did he honestly think wheat could calm my rage? 10 lives were snuffed out by his incompetence, taken by scavengers. Their potential rescue is the only thing stopping me. Otherwise, he is a corpse. He shivered before me, suffocating in the quiet. He cares for data, not breathing humans. A scorching cemetery waits outside under a blistering sky. Starvation dictates terms here, making grain more precious than bullion. A single convoy preserves legions, but individuals are expendable. To an accountant like Chen, troops were merely costly liabilities. He prioritized harvests over brothers in arms. A bill I will collect. He requires a lesson. My currency is human existence. I shall demonstrate that one pulse outweighs this wasteland. Mangled victims drag themselves through dust, praying for a miracle. They pursue rumors of a sanctuary here. Our population reached 4,000, finally transforming us into a legitimate power. Yet we are fragile. Empires cannot stand on mass graves. I require every worker. Those 10 must breathe. Should those raiders harm a single captive, I will incinerate them. Snap 2. Bye. Watch that horizon line. Show me the data. I growled at the wretch. Sensing his temporary reprieve, he finally stopped gasping for air. He rushed to his terminal, begging for a miracle. His pulse now depends entirely on the fate of those captives. Swapping rifles for hammers revealed a systemic decay. It dissolved the myth of security and highlighted my own negligence. My obsession with expansion allowed our defenses to crumble. I spotted the fracture moments before everything turned to ash. In a few short hours, we would be gone. I fund this militia. It is pathetic if they fail now. After his departure, I wrestled with my demons. My assistant brought up education. I planned a grim curriculum. Witnessing my expression, he fled. Solitary in the shadows, I interfaced with the computer. User ID verified. Zoe. Funds, 137,920. Attempts, 4,313. Capacity, 610. Advancement, 1,000. First aid, 3. Inventory, grain, feline, preserved greens, medicine, kernels, liquid, and cement. Roll. The monitor flashed, rotating through potential loot. The algorithm categorized the loot into 3 grades. The selection was abysmal, useless junk, spoiled rations, or premium artillery. Hidden at the lowest level were agricultural chemicals, sacks of venom and herbicide. I required actual weaponry, however. The vault tempted me with archery, armor, and that massive ballista. Merely eyeing those tools made my heart hammer. If a gun is a plaything, that launcher is a portable howitzer. That triple-corded beast fires metal spears that shred armor. Down in the trenches, Soldiers call those projectiles airborne explosives. A single impact penetrates granite. It is a perfect siege breaker. After those shafts embed, troops use them as ladders. Its distance is terrifying. If it is visible, you are gone. End of story. From 12 options, I had a 33% chance for gear. Please, grant me the weapon or armor. Either choice secures our stronghold. I sensed victory. Come dawn, I would strike Hafing and erase their existence. I engaged the mechanism. 12 symbols smeared into a neon blur. The dial became a luminous halo. I hit the emergency stop. It decelerated to a snail's pace. The firearm drifted past. Then the sword. The siege engine skipped. It brushed the plate. My temples pounded as the indicator halted on the border. I stopped breathing. That is the tactical gear, surely? The synthetic voice announced. Item secured. Hold on. Defoliant? You included agricultural venom in the rewards? I yelled. This is pathetic. Had you a neck, I would throttle it. I would abandon you to decay. The interface merely flickered, displaying my defeat. The evidence was undeniable. The pointer rested just beyond the boundary. It bypassed the equipment and settled on the poison. This is a scam, I spat. You could have landed elsewhere. That kit was our salvation. Now I possess only vats of toxin. I felt like screaming. What use is plant killer in a wasteland? Frankly, the spoiled meat was preferable to this trash. This is garbage. Pingyong is suffering through an epic drought. Every plant is already scorched. This chemical is completely worthless now. It is total refuse. Except for one detail, it is a terminal venom. A murderer with no cure. One contact equals expiration. Suddenly, a sinister thought ignited in the gloom. A ruthless scheme emerged. Hafing, you invited this doom. Curse your avarice. When the plan solidified, a deep snarl surfaced. Moments later, that noise morphed into a booming, deranged cackle. Returning to headquarters, Bang dispatched spies to monitor Hafing. Reports of my absolute failure reached the affluent Ye clan. Those elite scavengers were probably mocking my misfortune. Their mole, Yigawa, grinned at his superior. Objective completed. Sir, that traitor is spiraling like a trapped rodent. Yin laughed. Why wouldn't he? He just forfeited everything in the harvest lands. This play is a massive payday. I spent weeks sabotaging their supply chains just to own the sector. Their stock is tanking. Yigoan's hollow stare was the final blow. Everyone is hooked on that Zoji crop. Even that rat Lord Wong couldn't stop talking about it. He's the monster who bankrolled Jan and ruined my life. He rigged my trial just to watch me bleed under 50 lashes. Yi Wongmen. He started as a nobody. Now he's a lord. Time to burn him. I'm going to watch them suffocate in this cage. Yigawa snapped an order to his lead man. Yi Enron didn't blink. He vanished the second the boss stopped. He hauled ass out of there, faking a total mental breakdown like an Oscar winner. He raced toward Shang. Hafing was a spineless coward from Pingyong. He lived like a stray until he found these brutal, rocky peaks. Through pure violence, Hafing gathered the local washouts. They traded their souls for scraps and crime. They thrived by sucking the life out of the border families. That fort outside Pingyong houses 300 heartless killers ready for a fight. 20 guards couldn't stop my last run. Living was a coin toss. We barely made it. If the chief sends his men now, he's signing death warrants. Once Bishong swallowed the bait, he dismissed the messenger with a cocky grin. Rang walked out, acting like a tourist in that Pingyong shop. When the coast was clear, his expression soured. He spat on the dirt. Clueless, Bishong sent out a messenger bird. That fake intel needed to travel fast. By dusk, I had the leash tight. I put the guards into a hard lockdown. One slip-up meant a casket. No excuses. No mercy. With the new protocol set, I ordered every grain sack dumped. We drenched the whole hall in huge vats. But those barrels weren't filled with water. I spiked it with paraquat, a silent, invisible reaper. No smell, no color, just pure poison. In my old life, it was herbicide. It looks like tap water. Modern brands add a nasty stench so people don't drink it. They use dyes and bitter smells as warnings. People expect poison to look like death. My supply was the raw stuff, clear as a window and odorless. No toxic smoke, no bright colors, no warning. Just concentrated, high-octane death in a bottle. My guys stood there, thinking I was prepping travel rations. They thought the vats were clean until I forced a dose down a stray chicken's throat. The bird dropped dead instantly. The following silence was haunting. They finally saw the game. I planted a lie about a massive shipment hitting Pyongyang. The trap bait Hafing's thugs into stealing it. My men watched the rumor spread. My plan finally clicked. The sun was blazing, perfect for baking the toxin. That brutal heat finished the job, drying my lethal harvest fast. Bishong's intel confirmed it. Blades are old school. You don't need steel for a massacre. Those vultures have 300 blades. My village is growing, but we're outgunned. My security detail barely hits 400 men on a lucky day. Throwing rookies at those freaks in open combat is a suicide mission. I won't pay that price. This toxin is cleaner than a messy bayonet charge. It's just more efficient. I couldn't hide my smirk, the air was thick. We tied the last bag. Every grain was a death sentence. I watched them work. My men stopped, staring at the mountain of food. Not out of guilt, just the weight of the coming body count. They had no pity for those rats. Seeing food wasted made them sick. They were craving a fight. They were dying to smash those gates and burn the whole place to the ground. They have heart, but I won't send them into a meat grinder. In this town, I'm the law. When I talk, people listen. A weaker leader would have let rage trigger a suicide run. I stared them down. These supplies represent whether our children eat or starve. That stockpile was our pulse. Those punks left me no choice. This infection needed a cure. I told my boys, get your gear. I could feel their heat, but anger is a shitty strategist. 300 lowlifes were dug in deep on that ridge, waiting for us. A voice broke the quiet. Chief, those cowards don't scare me. They're just failures playing tough because they've got nothing left to lose. Give the word, barked young Wong, a kid raised in extreme poverty. He grew up in the dirt at the base of that mountain. Those parasites had shredded his world too many times. As he went silent, a massive roar of approval echoed off the stone walls. I signaled for quiet. You're tough, but you aren't cannon fodder. You're worth 10 of them. I walked the front line. Do you know why? I asked. The boy just stared, clueless. I got right in Wang Ting's face. Is it starting to make sense yet? You're the shield for your family, your brothers, and your home. We live for them. And honestly, for my sake, too. I kept that last part quiet, but they felt the gravity. The fear of failing their families finally hit them where it counts. Once it sank in, I said, that mountain belongs to us. Cross us, and we'll drag you out of whatever hole you're hiding in. I'm taking 50 shooters to recover our grain and bury the trash. The rest hold the line. Those 50 started a frantic scramble. The men started brawling just to prove who was the top dog. 7 days later, Xia Bao checked the prisoners in his cellar. He told his enforcer, Du Yanlong, to wrap it up. Show me the money. He spat. Where is the grain shipment? Let's just kill them and keep the haul. Du agreed. He stood up, but a terrified scout burst through the front doors. Boss, they're here. The supply truck finally arrived. Du Yanlong narrowed his one good eye. What's the head count out there? 6 guys, 2 trucks of grain, and a sled of booze. They smirked. Perfect timing. Xia laughed. Another hour, and they'd be ghosts. Du Yanlong's eye burned with pure malice. They're soft. Let's seize the whole lot and triple the prices tonight. Easy, Xia snapped. Kill our reputation, and you kill the business. You need a name if you want people to bow down. Du shrugged his shoulders. Fine, let's trade these nobodies for the whiskey. He grabbed his thugs and dragged the terrified locals outside. My elite unit vanished into the jagged mountain shadows, guarding the stash of grain and hooch. Every man was a calculated move in the deathly game I'd set in motion. I dressed them in filth to blend in. Ting, my most gifted liar, took the lead. The command was simple, no fighting back. One slip would blow our cover and trigger a bloodbath. Messing up meant a death sentence for the prisoners and the collapse of my empire. Long's goons closed in. He pressed cold steel against Ting's throat, his eyes full of hate. Do I know you, kid? You look familiar. Ting played the coward, trembling away from the blade. You've got a mind like a steel trap. Sir, he choked out. Just a farmhand from Wanga. I watched you torch my village last year. Long recalled the raid. He retracted the knife, his chest puffing out with hollow pride. Surprised a dirt kicker like you found a real job. Ting forced a pathetic, shaky grin. Hard times, boss. I'm just trying to keep my head down and find a meal. The whole haul is right here. This wagon is packed with the valley's best crop. At least 1,000 pounds. Ting ripped a sack open to flash the high-grade harvest. Long eyed the loot with his one good eye and let out a dry, raspy laugh. Your master isn't a total moron, he spat. He knows cash keeps the devil away. Ting bowed like a loyal dog. The boss didn't realize you pulled the strings out here, he whispered. He didn't know this was your turf. This premium whiskey is an olive branch. The leader of the Black Wind eyed the gift with heavy doubt. The thought of the booze spiked his greed, but he wanted to bleed them for every cent. You're full of it. What is this? A trap? Is the whiskey poisoned? Ting didn't bat an eye. He kept a perfect poker face, showing zero signs of fear. Standing before the butcher of Black Wind, he actually chuckled. You're joking, right, Chief? If you're spooked, I'll take the first swig. Ting played the thirsty drunk, reaching for a bottle. The sharp tang of alcohol filled the air. As he tipped it back, Long ripped it away. He shoved his blade back toward Ting's neck. This vintage is way too good for a mutt like you. A stray doesn't get a taste of the good stuff. Ting stood still, looking like a total weakling. Sir, I just wanted to show it was safe. I was just checking it for you. The rest of the unit played their parts to a T. Exactly. We just wanted to prove it's legit. We're on your side. Long pushed Ting away with the flat of his sword. Get out of here and tell your boss something, he growled. Don't ever try to play me. Understood, sir? My master is in town, but when he's done, he'll send even more tribute to your front door. Long sheathed his steel, feeling like a king. He finally got the message. Tell him next time, I want double. Ting bowed low, keeping the mask on until the very end. Enjoy the ego trip, he thought. With 300 shooters above us, the storm is about to break. Long gave a loud whistle to pull his crew from the brush. His thugs dragged 10 locals into the light. Ting's men rushed to collect the battered hostages. They disappeared into the dark mountain passes in seconds. Long didn't care, barking at his men to haul the loot. Ting guided the group through the thick timber. He hit a hidden trail where my troops were waiting. That was our rally point. The moment the refugees saw me, they broke down, weeping with pure relief. They fell to the dirt, eyes cast down. Commander, you saved us. We're yours now. We'll do whatever it takes. I saw a haunting, absolute devotion in their tired eyes. We'd lay down our lives for you, they cried. I helped them up, checking their scars. I used some high-end meds to treat their gashes and bruises. We geared up for the 72-hour trek back. When that clock hits 0, those bastards are done for. The survivors treated me like a new god. Those idiots cheered while dragging our sabotaged gear. The kid kept nagging the boss for a bigger slice of the pie. The dealer folded. The guy is clearly swimming in money. The boss circled those barrels like a hungry wolf. Look, kid, you have no clue how the big leagues operate. You bleed them slowly, kill the golden goose and you go hungry. Corner a rich man and he'll just send hitmen. An assassination team? The room turned ice cold. That logic was bulletproof, leaving his brother completely lost for words. 100 silver pieces didn't touch his greed. Every wagon passing through these woods owes me a tax. The thugs swapped a sharp, nasty little grin. The boss let our rigged shipment slide right through his fingers. He checked the gear and poured the spiked whiskey. The harsh burn masked the metallic tang of the slow-acting chemicals. Feeling untouchable, he threw a massive rager on the ridge. Those fools didn't realize the party was actually their wake. That win was just a one-way ticket to the graveyard. Down at the base, my entire plan was falling to pieces. My lieutenant was digging for any solid intel. We ditched the mess and vanished before the sun hit the horizon. Competition moved in and hiked the prices immediately. Rice spiked to 2 silver coins for a single serving. I waited while my scout brought the word. I asked if the rivals were the ones bankrolling the chaos. He nodded. They were playing the role of the hero. That fake charity set off every alarm bell in my head. We're at war. Why the sudden kindness? The numbers added up. Our enemies were funding those bottom feeders. It was a setup from the start. My entire endgame rested on that tainted booze. 72 hours went by before the crew finally ate. Packing light, I gave the final orders. I told him to take the cash and ghost immediately. The local famine was hitting the breaking point. The starving crowd was ready to kick in the doors. We took the back trails up the mountainside. We hit the perimeter and spotted the guards. The sentries were weaving, unable to keep their feet. They'd been dead men walking for 3 days. My poison was finally landing the knockout blow. My targets chalked it up to a rough night or a stomach virus. Little did they know, within 48 hours, they were already measuring out their own graves. Their bodies turned to stone as their vitality drained away. Simply walking 10 feet felt like a cross-country hike, crushing the pride of every local heavy. By day 3, a pale, ashen mask took over their faces. The internal decay leaked out as a foul, yellow grime that coated their skin like grease. The bosses finally saw they were living a literal hell. Their hired guns were collapsing like house of cards, but the truth hit way too late to save them. Shouts cut the silence as we stormed the hill to find the lead man. My 72-hour master plan hit perfectly. Those goons couldn't even stand on their own feet. 50 city brawlers backed me up as we smashed the entrance to splinters. With 10 ex-cons added, our crew of 61 shredded that den of snakes. We hit them like wolves in a sheepfold. Soldiers like Wang Ting went all in, while the townspeople finally got their chance for some bloody payback. They struck hard, turning the tables on the men who thought they were kings. 300 thugs fell flat, their big talk silenced as they hit the dirt. They lacked the strength to block a single hit from my squad. My crew shared a history of pain, and their drive for revenge was pure, concentrated poison. Reckoning day had come, and the brawl turned raw and ugly. The elite just mocked the carnage, cursing the sky as if they were beyond consequences. "That all you got?" the brat mocked, struggling to stay upright. He screamed for a bloodbath, but his body quit on him before he could move. His 20-pound steel sword sank into the muck while his buddy fumbled for a blade, eyes bulging with absolute, raw panic. The weapon he used to handle easily now felt like a heavy slab of cement. He couldn't move it, so he chose the only option left: fleeing. He froze, caught in the same brutality he'd peddled for years. "Survive at any cost," he whispered, leaning on every gutterborn instinct he possessed. The two kingpins held onto one another just to stay upright in the mess. They bolted for the rear, but 12 of my men were already there. Blades lined the exit, trapping the vermin in their own hole. Wang Ting saw them move and lunged, ready to finish the game right then and there. He landed a strike designed to crush their spirits. The edge connected, forcing those shaking losers back into the dark corners. He kept the pressure on, kicking them where it hurt with surgical accuracy. The two syndicate heads collapsed like wet rags and slammed into the ground. While they begged, sharp metal touched their necks. Staring at the boy who beat them, the leader choked out, "Tell me this isn't real." He'd ignored the threats earlier, but Wang Ting's gaze promised death. It was over. The old man peered through the gloom, trying to recognize his downfall. "Just some dock worker," his associate coughed through blood. Wang Ting snapped an order, cuffed them, and dragged them to the boss. Bound like cattle, they were dumped at my boots. "Who's running things now?" I asked. I watched him crawl, yet he still tried to talk trash. "Who the hell are you, raiding my place?" he hissed. I just smiled. "I spent 10 days hunting you, and now the bill is finally due. I went through hell to get here, and you don't even know me." Shadows cleared from my face, and he stuttered. "Wait, the boy from the corner?" In the flesh, I murmured. He never guessed a petty theft would end his life. "You're a monster," Duong spat. "Tainting the water? Have you no soul?" Every fiber of his being burned with pure hatred. He attempted to spit on me, but he had nothing left. It just ran down his chin. Sensing the end, the leader managed a pathetic grin. "Lord Zhao, please, spare us, and we'll be your most loyal servants. I'll hand you everything." They didn't realize my brew had no antidote. I wasn't going to be kind to a vulture that feeds on helpless people. However, I needed to know who funded the robbery. "Want the cure? It's yours, but it'll cost every dime you've ever pinched." I made up a toxin so gruesome it even creeped out my crew. They fell for it, picturing their insides melting into black goo. The leader cracked. "I'll tell you everything. Just not that. The raid on your stuff." The order came from Pingyang County. Old Man Yi was behind it. Just the coward I expected. This game is cutthroat, and the Ye family was pulling all the strings. They cleared the thieves just to see my empire crumble. They wanted to turn my name into a punchline for the whole city. What was the bounty on me? I needed to know my value. The second-in-command began spilling everything once his boss gave in. 20 gold bars, plus a percentage from selling your own gear back to you. They planned to flip my own stolen stock for a fast profit. I gave a cold laugh. The Yees were going all out with that kind of cash. I already had over 100,000 silver pieces hidden, but actual gold? That's real, dedicated spite. To spend 20 bars of the good stuff just to delete one rival is insane. They overpaid, but that mistake gave me the leverage I wanted. I figured this den was probably packed with 10 years of illegal loot. I fished a small glass bottle from my coat. I teased them with their only hope for survival, dangling it before their terrified faces. Their eyes bugged out. "You've been hoarding for a decade," I said. "Lead me to the safe and maybe you'll keep breathing." Facing the end, their ego and money meant nothing. I would have uncovered the treasure eventually. They were just my local guides. Surrendering the keys was their final move. The leader was already plotting a return, still believing he was the genius in the room. He imagined getting healthy and eventually cutting my throat. Those dreams of payback were the only thing holding him up. He looked almost smug as he guided me to the stash. My whole team watched us leave in a thick, heavy silence. They saw their local kings dragged off like street dogs. With the leader gone, the rest of the crew just vanished into the night. Steel hit the muck as their front buckled. Nobody was left without chains. We finally burned the Yuji Hall fortress to the ground. Ma and Du looked like death warmed over, clawing toward the hall. That vault was just a tomb of bloody rocks and frozen assets. The stench of rot clung to every crate of filthy cash. 2 massive trunks held the literal price of every soul they had extinguished. The thought of the families they slaughtered turned my stomach. Then my eyes landed on the only thing in that room worth a damn. To hell with the trinkets. That charcoal-colored sheen was the real score. Black Ops hardware stacked high steel, bows, and pure carnage. Hidden away were 3 sets of flawless heavy plating. My forge was running dry, but this payload flipped the script entirely. Production had flatlined, and Ma saw the hunger in my eyes. He hit the deck, groveling like a dog while tallying the loot. The man was fishing for a miracle. I just wanted to see him suffer. "Time to talk?" I poked. He swallowed the hook whole. He pounded his chest, barking nonsense about his loyalty. He lied with his dying breath. I demanded the final body count. I need the exact figure to measure out the cure. Their eyes lit up. Behind that fake grin, Du had the cold stare of a shark. Including us, 318 survivors remain. Wong, pull half the unit out. Leave these 2 rats in the dirt. Erase the other 316. No loose ends. Fast and clean. The rest of you, start hauling this gear out. The ring of unsheathed steel echoed. Ma's world collapsed in a heartbeat. He thought he was an employee. He was a corpse. "You snake," he shrieked. "You gave your word." Fueled by pure desperation, they lunged at me with everything they had left. My guys dropped them before they took a step. "Keep them breathing. The city needs a show." My voice was pure winter. "I never gave you anything. That poison is already eating you alive. There is no cavalry." My men kept their faces in the mud. Their pride broke, replaced by the empty gaze of ghosts. I would not waste a single drop of medicine on these bottom feeders. They were human cancer. For the others, the end was swift. It was not cruelty. I had already poisoned their food anyway. Breathing would have been a slow agony. I was just being efficient. It was a mercy killing, and a wake-up call for the rookies. You only find your backbone after dancing with the devil. I might have played fair if they were not total garbage. These cowards traded their souls for a pulse every single time. People are predictable. The screaming outside was bone-chilling. A flicker of shame hit me until a scout pointed toward the basement. What I found in that hole killed my empathy forever. I chose right. 10 women were down there, shattered, hollow faces staring back, skin thin as parchment. I stepped into the dark, whispering, "You are safe. The rescue is here. This hellhole burns tonight. Your nightmare is over." I kept it steady, but they still flinched. To them, hope was a lure. Suddenly, Ting and Gulu kicked in the door. Ting looked like he had clawed his way out of hell. He zeroed in on one girl. He lunged forward, nearly taking me down as he hit his knees. Cradling the dying girl, he gasped, "Chunai, look at me. Your brother is here." His trembling hands held her like glass. I moved in, seeing her eyes focus. She blinked, seeing him covered in the same filth as the monsters. A jagged scream tore through the room. Ting, did they get you too? Did they take you? No, baby. We are leaving. Now. I am so sorry I was late. Watching them, his hidden fire finally made sense. This kid had waded through a meat grinder for his blood. Strange how he played the quiet delivery boy while hiding a killer's heart. A kid with that kind of steel is going places. That reunion softened the air. The others calmed down. Time to wrap this up. You are safe. He is with me. Nobody touches you again. A trembling voice rose from the shadows. Are you really the law? A weeping old man dragged himself over. Officer, Heisen treated us like cattle. They broke us for a payday that never existed. We have nothing. I have seen some filth, but these guys were absolute demons. I glanced at Gulu. The trash out front? He wiped his blade. Done. 316 bodies. Not a single heartbeat left. 40 sentries. 10 more digging graves. My voice was cold as a January morning. Forget the dirt. Grab the gas. Let us burn this tomb. Get them some real food. These people have been through the meat grinder. I told my team to ignore the loot and help the survivors. One by one, the survivors crawled out of the crushing dark. They walked straight toward the pile of bodies in the yard. Those monsters were stacked like cords of rotten, useless firewood. The gore nearly turned my stomach, but I held it together. The victims did not blink. They spat on the corpses with a bone-deep, burning hatred. Pure fury had completely drowned out any nausea. A scout sprinted up, gasping, "Boss, riders at the perimeter. They are moving in." My heart hammered. Was there another act to this nightmare? Did Balin have more than those 318 goons hidden away? We were gassed. My 60 men had given everything in that massacre. Another fight would be our grave. Then the scout dropped the name. It is the Ye Syndicate. 20 riders, the old man in front. They are hauling heavy crates. Likely the payoff for all this blood. The Yes. Right on cue. Perfect. Let us settle the debt. A low growl hit my throat. These parasites had been bleeding my city dry for years. Yi Yenron was leading the pack. Behind him, 20 mules carried the blood money and the bullion, 10 gold bars to wash away the sins. They saw us and turned to stone. Haying Fort was a graveyard now, echoing with ghosts. The old spark had died, buried under a suffocating, heavy silence. Warm blood painted the guards slumped at the gate. Cold dread washed over them as they realized every single way out was bricked shut. Running meant a bullet in the back, so he swallowed his fear. He shouted a command, and the massive iron gates groaned open. Yenron walked in, his knuckles white and trembling. He gripped a silver bar, praying that cash still talked in this hellhole. He plastered on a pathetic grin and tried to charm a blood-splattered killer. My guys didn't move. The guard ignored the bribe like it was trash. "Save it," the man barked, tossing the merchant forward. They marched toward the grand hall, straight into the jaws of a nightmare. That heavy bolt sliding home killed Yenron's spirit. Pure panic set in. The trap had finally snapped shut. He hunted for a leader but found only shadows full of wolves. Below him, the floorboards were slick with a dark, foul-smelling filth. Some thug tossed a severed arm aside like it was yesterday's garbage. It finally clicked these weren't soldiers. They were straight-up butchers. Life was worth nothing here, making this a one-way trip. He didn't know if he was meeting an ally or his own executioner. The air turned electric as 10 killers unsheathed their crimson-stained steel. These hulking freaks looked like they'd crawled out of a fever dream. I orchestrated this slaughter just to snap his soul, and it worked. They looked like walking corpses the moment they stepped into my domain. Their legs failed them, hitting the wood hard. From the dark, I gave a tiny nod, signaling my most brutal hitter to move. He snatched Yenron by the neck, hauling him toward me like a sack of meat. The rest of them squeezed together, waiting for the axe to fall. Channeling a madman, I spat some gutter filth. "Where is the score? What is the root?" I roared, paralyzing him with pure terror. The code was foreign to him, and his words died in his throat. He realized the guy he used to trade with was long dead. He just shivered against the cold, jagged stone. I dropped the persona and slammed my palm down with a deafening crack. "Open your mouth. Why are you in my house?" He jumped, stammering his name while fumbling with some useless documents. He claimed he was a merchant here to square an old debt. I barked a laugh, mocking how the old man had been far too weak. You got the cash, or are you just wasting my air? I have it, he wheezed, signaling his men to step up. Some lackey nearly fumbled a red crate, making Yenron lose it. Give me that, he hissed, cursing the guy's butterfingers. Trembling with dread, he shoved the assistant toward me. The poor clerk walked forward like he was stepping off the edge of the world. He dropped the box and bolted for the dark. He cowered behind his boss like a sewer rat while I pried the heavy lid back. 10 gold bars shimmered inside, and a wave of hunger hit me. My pulse hammered, but I kept my face like granite. I thrashed the wood, howling his name until my throat felt like raw meat. The coward recoiled as my voice choked the life out of the room. He looked 2 seconds away from pissing his pants. I shoved the signed deal in his face, the one calling for 20 gold bars. But I am only counting 10. Is your family broke? Or do you think I have grown too soft to take what belongs to me? The guy turned ghost white, pleading for his life. Please, Boss Lee, have mercy. I paid the other guy 10 to settle the account. Forget Sia. This is my kingdom now. Did I ever see those first 10 bars? He just stared, giving a pathetic, shaky little nod of no. If it did not hit my palm, it does not exist. You still owe me 10. He tried to argue, but fear had locked his jaw shut. I let him simmer in his own fear before yelling at my guy. Sandabow, let us go. The idiot just stood there playing tough guy. He was putting on a show for the terrified losers on the floor. I kicked his shin to snap him out of it, and he jumped, remembering his alias. What is the move, boss? He whispered, his bravado gone. The bodies out back are still warm. Show our guests the previous occupants. Make sure they learn what happens when I am shorted. I pointed toward the tree line. My crew closed in on them like a pack of wolves. They hauled the traders off while I ignored the grunts moving the gold. I wanted the heavy hitters, the manager, and the trust fund kid. Behind the tents lay the old crew, a decaying heap of human trash. A guy in a suit like him had not seen anything bloodier than a paper cut. The stench of decay hit them like a hammer, making them gag. My own gut twisted, but I kept a predatory smile plastered on. Throw them in with the rest, I roared. Let them catch up with their buddies in that pile. My guy did not hesitate, shoving them toward the corpses. They scrambled to escape, terrified of touching the cold, blue flesh. The manager tried to bolt, but a blade found his throat in 2 seconds. Cold steel froze him as my man gave him a look that promised death. Go ahead. Maybe the dead can convince me to forget those 10 bars. Settle the tab or die. 10 bars is a hell of a debt to leave hanging. Selling the whole county's harvest would not even cover the interest on this. A low-level thug could not pull that trigger. Only the boss held that power. Trapped between the blade and the pit, he crawled forward. As he got close, a corpse slid down the pile and landed at his feet. Dead eyes stared up, and the boss's pride finally shattered into nothing. He collapsed into the filth, weeping for a second chance. We will pay. 10 bars, anything. I let the silence stretch, then asked about his future. He was face down in the mud, babbling about cash, but I cut him off. Wrong. Remember that shop in Longmen? Your friend forgot to pay for dessert. I hauled my guys through 1,000 miles of hell just to reach this godforsaken hole. Rang stood frozen, his face a mess of hysterical laughter and pure, unadulterated dread. 1,000 miles, just for a seat at the table. 300 lives traded for pocket change. Total madness. He cursed, bowing, that greedy glutton whose sugar habit just cost a whole fort their lives. The old man shook as I pinned the kid against the wall, whispering a harsh truth right into his ear. Listen up, brat. Does that coward bowing still owe me for the trash he pinched? The kid took one look at the mountain of bodies, turned white as a ghost, and hit the floor. It finally clicked for Rang. Compared to me, those local punks were just choir boys. He ignored the kid and started nodding like a toy on a dashboard. He has to settle up. He is a total deadbeat. Bowing was a rat. Who nukes their own name for a few pieces of candy? The pest got what was coming to him. Point made. I waved my crew to drag them inside. In the foyer, the old man and his heavy were gasping like they were drowning on dry land. Out on the ridge, the metallic stench of fresh carnage had nearly suffocated them. They were basically walking corpses. I gave them a heartbeat to breathe before I really started turning the screws. You are a sharp guy, manager. 15 gold bars seems like a fair price for my trouble, right? Rang choked. 15? Boss, it was 10 5 minutes ago. Why the price hike? I kicked my boots up on the table. If you had just paid the 10 earlier, we would be even. Think of the extra 5 as a convenience fee. You got an issue with my math? Bowing's sweet tooth cost 300 people their lives. 5 gold bars to keep your own skin is a bargain. Right, manager? He nodded until his neck popped. It is a steal, sir. You are a saint. A savior, he cried, looking like he had seen a ghost. It was pitiful. I felt the temper flare. Yi, I know you are just blowing smoke up my tail. I am not some street-level thug. Your people thought they could just walk away from the tab? The old man saw his mistake and started shaking with a brand new brand of terror. He froze, waiting for me to call for his head on a platter. He started waving his arms, desperate to shut me down before I did him any more favors. Enough. We cannot. We haven't even scraped together the first 10 gold bars yet. Just being alive right now is more mercy than we ever earned. I narrowed my eyes and let out a sneer. Here I am trying to be a nice guy and you stiff me. What is the deal? Is your crew trying to play me for a fool in my own house? I leaned into the role, loving the tension while he practically melted into the floor. He was cracking, knowing my gifts usually come with a one-way ticket to the morgue. Trapped, the old man played his final, desperate card. Chief, you know the governor of Yonga, surely. As if I could ever forget that blood-sucking parasite. That name has been seared into my brain since birth. I was tossed out to this wasteland with a price on my head because of that man. The second he mentioned that title, the whole Yi family riddle made sense. The governor was not just a friend. He was their ultimate get-out of jail-free card. I knew that snake was kin. My blood was boiling, but I kept a straight face. I played dumb and tilted my head. Young as governor? Never heard of him. Who is he? Watching my blank look, the old man perked up, thinking he had some leverage. His name is Yi Wangmin, he bragged, the crown jewel of our entire bloodline. I was laughing my head off on the inside. Every old debt was getting settled today. Oh, I will give him a gift, something he will feel until his dying day. So, you are kin to the big shot? I acted surprised to set the snare. Watching him walk tall with that fake ego, he really thought a title would save him from me. Truth is, my mind is as deadly as my blade. I put in the work while everyone else was sleeping. 2 years lost to textbooks, no degree, just a brain like a razor. Eventually, I hit a wall and chose violence over starving. My past left him pale. He did not expect a scholar to be packing heat, but I played the part. I leaned in and whispered, the only men I look up to are the ones with those fancy degrees. I respect high rollers like the governor or your cousin, who passed those exams. Meeting a heavy hitter from your family today feels like destiny. He swallowed the bait, thinking the mere mention of his kin had me shaking in my boots. He was probably planning to stiff me on the 15 gold bars, but I cut him off. That is why I am letting you go with a little parting gift. Boys, hit the warehouse now. Grab that specific batch of grain we hauled in 3 days ago. Once he realized the gift was not a bullet to the brain, the guy finally took a shaky breath. Old man Lou caught my eye and played along, sprinting off to find that pile of black market goods. He knew I had a dark reason for being this generous with stolen cargo. I wanted the load from 72 hours ago, no substitutes. Why that specific grain? Simple, it was spiked with the same toxin the cops have been tracking down. He did not have a clue, thank God. I just had to keep it away from our clean stock. We had marked the poison bags with a thorn. Seconds later, Lou was back with the muscle. The boys hauled the heavy bags to the center, dumping the lethal harvest at his feet. Tell me, Manager Yi, isn't your family supposed to be the kings of the grain market? This is the top shelf stuff. The elite batch your rivals lost to that hijacker last week. My crew and I paid a visit to those thugs at the fort earlier today. We took care of business and kept the haul. Now I am handing the whole inventory over to you. So, what is the deal? Pay up the 15 gold bars and we are square. He looked at the pile over 700 kilos of grain. It looked like a fortune. It was not worth 15 gold bars, but losing cash was better than dying. He forced a smile. I had him cornered. I grabbed him by the shirt, getting right in his face. Usually, I would hold a guy like you for ransom, but your family has such a sterling reputation. Since I respect your family tree so much, I will be a nice guy and show you the door. But he did not feel lucky. He saw the predator hiding behind my polite mask. He could not forget the 300 men I had just slaughtered at that fort. I sold the act, but he could feel the threat in every word. My face was made of stone. You are free to leave, but I am sending a chaperone to keep things moving. He will follow you to grab those 15 gold bars. Hey, Lou, you ready for a walk? Go down there and bring back our 15 gold bars. Lou knew this was the ultimate loyalty test. He hit his chest and gave me a firm nod. I have got this, boss. I will have it by tonight. But what if they try to be slick and stiff us? I cut him off before he ruined the vibe, keeping my eyes locked on the manager. I gave him a hollow smile and quoted a bit of scripture. You are a man of honor. I am sure you would not dream of letting my guy leave without the cash. He looked into my soul. A cold sweat broke out as he started to stumble over his words. He finally felt real dread. It was not a thug with a knife he feared. It was a killer with a brain. I was his worst nightmare. And the best part? I was just getting started. I only had 2.5 years of school. Imagine if I had finished, I would be untouchable. I shed my pack and haunted their tracks. Rest was out of reach as I closed in on that stronghold. The boss sat frozen, tracking each delivery. Initially, the geezer's stillness was haunting. Reality hit. 15,000 bucks were gone with me, exposed. He signaled his hounds to begin the slaughter. He inked my execution at his workstation. The play, wiping out every person I loved. Joke's on him. His Top Gun is a rookie. That clerk couldn't plan a 2-bit heist. How did a nobody like me build a legion? Easy. The government folded and abandoned us. We were phantoms in a corpse of a town. When order died, I fed the hungry. I fixed the ruins and purchased total fealty. I'm the bank now. This zip code is mine. Folks follow me because the rich choked. He snapped, smashing fine porcelain against the brick. He trembled while his lieutenant stayed rigid. He squeezed the guards until their stories broke. Evidence proved his kin wasn't the rat. Stealing is small. This insult means total combat. Backtalk equals a coffin, so I vanished. He bet the farm on taking out the giants. He's tapped out and buried in debt. Lights out. A dark, final plot formed in his skull. Is that pro-killer actually on the rival's payroll? I froze, fearing the incoming carnage. If so, those cleaners are packed. He's got 300 bodies to his name. I checked. The chief is bolting before sunrise. Perhaps those grunts aren't actually loyal to him. The senior finally swallowed the cold truth. Who kills over a worthless piece of pottery? Still, those corpses in the canyons were authentic. He sent his kin for training. They bombed. The boy came back a shaking disaster. Now he's just a sobbing pile in the mud. He's hunting for scraps. Who clears his tab? Death is coming to settle the score. Don't corner a beast with 0 to lose. Pay up, breathing beats being right. I'll use his reputation to drain every bank. They'll bleed, but I'll find fresh targets. Opponents are 6 feet under. This town is my park. The Yi crew owns everyone. Their clock's ticking. No more hiding or lying. Those scavengers will rip this city apart for my 15 stolen bars. Back at the den, Golu hovered by the frame, drinking cold tea. The team entered the safe. I wanted eyes up. Golu moved. Empty safes meant plan B. The stash is tainted. One taste turns them into zombies. I'll return shortly to dump their bodies. Tabs closed. Suddenly, Golu's grip tightened until his hands paled. He braced to hit as a senior emerged from the gloom. The man knelt, greeting the mythic Sandabow. Yugwa smirked, buying seconds, but Golu wasn't biting. He barked, wanting his 15 gold bricks. Hand them over, Golu snarled as the elder blocked the path. Easy, we have the loot, Yugwa sang. A gorgeous dame emerged, clutching a crimson box. Golu recalled my creed, pretty things kill. He snatched the kit, verified the 15 bars, and bailed. Weighted by wealth, he made for the exit. Yugwa kept pushing, calling the ridge a cemetery. He pushed booze and snacks, fishing for info, but I forged him with a grit that bourbon couldn't crack. A round of shots meant 0 to him. He spat a refusal and hit the night air. The dame and the gold were just bait for rats. Golu's exit left the elder in a quiet tomb. He finally saw he'd poked the wrong beast.